All right. Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. It's just afternoon. I hope your day is as beautiful as outside as it is up in here in East Lansing. Before I introduce myself, I am going to do a quick poll with you. So this poll works as a word cloud. So if you want to take your phone or any other device you have near you and scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and enter that number. I want to hear from you. What other words come to mind when you hear the word science? So some words that are synonymous with science, or you tend to think about as like a sort of like stereotype that comes with science. And as you enter the words, they will actually show up on the screen. I'll even try it too. Academic. Yeah. Just through word, we have biology, labs, academic. Those are all accurate. Truth. Exactly. All right, so the purpose of this is to sort of see where your mind associates science, and later on, I hope that it'll change to sort of expand in a more creative aspect. We have nature, yes. And people. Awesome, yes, you guys are all thinking on the right track. All right. So, who am I? You're probably wondering. My name is Zoe Pozios. I'm a first-year student here at MSU, majoring in genomics and molecular genetics through Lyman Briggs College, and I am giving this presentation on behalf of the MSU Sci-Fest Science Communication Training Program. And to be completely honest with you all, I was never a fan of art class in high school. And it wasn't until recently where I thought, why didn't I like art class, or why didn't I focus more on it? And I focused more on math and science. And I'm sure most of you have heard about people either being right-brained or left-brained, where like you'll go on a BuzzFeed quiz and it's like, oh, answer these questions and we'll tell you whether you're logical or creative, like you can't be both. And with right brain being associated with feelings, visualization, intuition, creativity, and the arts, and the left brain being associated with linear thinking, facts, and logic. And while in school learning about this, I felt as though I had to make a choice, but I couldn't be a blend of being creative and logical, and I had to choose more of a left brain approach and focus on math and science because that's what I was good at. But this past semester, I was in my virtual biology lab, and our instructor was teaching us about different streak plate techniques, which is a way to spread bacteria onto an agar plate, which creates more controlled environment when working with living bacteria in the lab. And if you look at these pictures, they seem like very intricate paintings, like very beautiful portraits, but they're actually made of living bacteria that have been genetically modified to be different colors. And this is what piqued my curiosity of the role that art plays in science. So upon further research of this matter, I came across a whole art practice known as BioArt, which, by definition, is the practice of art using live tissues, bacteria, living organisms, and life processes. In fact, this term was coined quite recently in 1997 by an artist named Eduardo Cac in a quite abstract exhibit where he inserted a microchip into his own ankle. Now, let me clarify that bioart does not imply any live invasive procedures, but simply the use of living things to make art. And in this case, Eduardo used himself to make art. I wanted to highlight a few different bioartists that I found while researching this field and how they break the barrier between STEM and art. So first up, when I was researching this sort of agar art that I found in my biology lab, I came across Maria Pinho-Cobo, who works along with Dr. Mehmet Berkman at the New England Biolabs to create bacterial art, a collection that involves the use of genetically engineered microbes to create beautiful agar art. she believes that the artistic and scientific methodologies of describing reality are equally valid and should be combined instead of separated. And as you can see here, these creations are absolutely beautiful. She actually created a TED Talk a few years ago showing how her and Dr. Berkman collaborated. So she is sort of the artist in the situation, and Dr. Berkman is the scientist. So they sort of collaborate in this lab to engineer bacteria to be different colors, and she will actually use an agar plate as her palette and create these awesome pieces. Next up, we have Jane Kramer, who is an East Lansing native, a fine art and documentary photographer who photographs the shadows of endangered and threatened plant species in Michigan onto paper made from invasive plants. So through her art, Jane portrays the endangered species struggle to survive, especially with the presence of the invasive species. So as you can see here, we have beetgrass, which is a Michigan native, onto garlic mustard, which is an invasive species. And we also have the Virginia bluebells, which another Michigan native, onto phragmites, which is another invasive species. And last but not least, we have Suzanne Anker, a visual artist and theorist working at the intersection of art and the sciences. She's concerned with genetics, climate change, species extinction, and toxic degradation. And she calls attention to the beauty of life and the necessity for the enlightened thinking about nature's tangled bank. A few of her art pieces, this one I found extremely mesmerizing. It is called the Butterfly MRI. As you can see in the name, she portrayed butterflies onto a brain scan. Here we have her collection called Remote Sensing, which I took as the way that bacteria grow by feeling their surroundings of nearby bacteria. And she's also the founder and director of the BioArt Lab at the School of Visual Arts in New York, which, founded in 2011, it was conceived as a place where scientific tools and techniques became tools and techniques in art practice. So she's actually a sort of pioneer in creating a lab specifically designated to this bioart. Now, you don't have to be a professional artist to practice science art. In fact, you have probably combined science and art in school. I'm sure we all know in the top left corner these sort of leaf rubbings that we did in elementary school, where you would go outside in the fall time, gather some leaves, come back inside, put a piece of paper over it, and just use a crayon or any colored pencil to sort of create the shape of the leaf. On the bottom here, we have we would cut the stems of a flower, put them into some dyed water, and watch as the water was sucked up by the flower and creating some beautiful flowers. And in this top right corner here, this is actually a picture that I took my senior year of high school, where in my AP biology lab, we actually genetically transformed E. coli, which is a bacteria that lives in your gut, and put a piece of jellyfish DNA in there to make it fluoresce under UV light. And it wasn't until recently where I realized that this was my own way of practicing science art. And it was super cool. We shone a black light, and you can see these green dots here are the bacterial colonies growing on the agar plate. It was also antibiotic resistant, as well as fluorescing under UV light. So as I'm in my dorm room, I do not have the space to create a live demonstration for you. So instead, I created a video. This is a way that you can practice science art on your own time using natural pigments to create watercolor paint. So I'm going to show the video. Hi everyone, it's Zoe from Science as Your Palette, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make watercolor paint from natural pigments. So to start off, what you'll need is some hot water, any spice, plant, or berry, paintbrushes, and a spoon and container to hold your paint. So the first thing you want to do is grab your container, and the first material I'm going to be using today are blackberries. So you're just going to take them out, put them in the container. Next, you want to take your spoon and your hot water, and remember to be very careful. As you can see, there's steam coming out of the mug that I was using, and just put a bit of water into the container. That'll help extract the pigment. And remember not to use too much water, as our natural pigments won't give off as much color, so you don't want to dilute it and make it more sheer. Then taking our spoon, you're going to start mashing up the blackberries, and you can already see the beautiful purple color that they give off. as you can see here, I decided to add a bit more berries to make the color a bit more pigmented. And that's pretty much it. We're going to take our paintbrush, dip a bit in the water, dip into our pigment, and see the color that it gives off. So the steps remain pretty much the same, but I'm going to show you guys how I use this for different spices. So I have some ground turmeric here. And then I'm just going to add the turmeric into the container and add my desired amount of water. And this first batch that I made was a bit sheer, so I decided to add more turmeric to make the color a bit darker. And last but not least, I'm using some chili powder to make a sort of red-orange color. So we're following the same steps as the ground turmeric, adding it to the container and adding our water. And once your paints are done, you are free to create whatever you desire. I even decided to get a little creative here and make a character from Among Us. I never said I was a good science artist. Feel free to tag your creations on Instagram at MSU SciFest and all right, so as you can see, I was very limited in my resources. I took whatever I could find at Target, but I encourage you all to go out in nature with flowers in bloom. I know wild violets would give off a really beautiful color, or any other flower, any spices you find. Obviously, be careful with any berries you find out in nature. But this is a very safe way to create paints, especially for kids. We know that they're all natural because we're finding them in nature or in our own cupboards. So earlier we saw a sort of divide between those who are considered left and right-brained. And after researching the field of bioart, I believe that there exists an overlap between the fields and that combining science and art allows for new curiosities and sparks interests in scientists and non-scientists alike. And I encourage you all to be aware of the A in STEAM, which stands for art, and our so-called right and left brains that should work together to bring about change and communicate scientific advancements in a much more creative way. So that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the Q&A and I'll get to answering them. Let me see if this is. Thank you, Catherine. And if you wanted to rewatch the video, I have it linked on my virtual booth for the MSU Sci-Fest, or you could also look up my name, just Zoe Pozios is my YouTube channel. Catherine asks, will you tell us about your post-grad plans? So as a first-year student and living in a COVID world, things are still up in the air, but I am pre-med as of now, so I hope to go to medical school in the future. I've also been considering sort of genetic counseling or any other way that I can use science to better the community. Raylan asks, how would you go about creating agri art? What materials would I need? So I actually, when thinking of this presentation, I had wanted to get into some sort of bio lab and create agri art. It is pretty simple if you're in a lab, so you really can't do it from home. You would need to, obviously, because you're working with potentially pathogenic bacteria such as E. coli. In the lab, what we did was we just performed a sort of like gene transformation where you take the E. coli, add some enzymes, whole scientific process, and sort of transform it with a new bacteria, and then we like spread on the agar plate, let it grow. If you wanted to watch a video about, let me see if I can find it. Maria Pinho-Cobo was the artist that I talked about who did the agar art. There is a really informational video, it's pretty short, from the American Society for Microbiology, which shows how they like transform the bacteria. So they actually have a bunch of different agar plates of different colored bacteria where she'll take her little loop and sterilize it and then like pick up different colors and create them onto an agar art. So let me see if I can find that video. And I will link it. And I can also put it on my virtual booth. Let me see. Okay, so I have the link here. I'll just put it in the Q&A. Well, I don't think I can put it in the Q&A. I will definitely put it on my virtual booth right after this. All right, were there any other questions that you guys had? Thank you all for coming. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for attending the Michigan State Science Festival. And yeah, that's all from me. If you have any questions, my email is under my virtual booth. Feel free to email me. I will post the links to my video for the natural paint, as well as the link to that agar art video for you to watch. And that is all from me. Thank you all for watching.